so many moving parts. I can't really. I know.
All right, good morning. I think, will it be helpful if I use the microphone?
Yep.
Okay, I assumed it would be, and I'll try not to wander too far on and off. But thank you so much for coming. I'm really excited to share with you about Velvet Ashes. And I love seeing the range of demographic because this is our hope. This is our hope for Velvet Ashes. So before we begin, let me briefly pray for us. God, we just thank you so much for this opportunity to be together in person, to hear about how you are using Velvet Ashes around the world. And Lord, I love that you can take this talk and you can bring to mind different people who need to know about this resource, different ways that we personally can each use it, and just the ways, God, that you're using technology for your good around the world. It's just so exciting. So thank you, God, for this chance to share and to fellowship and to hear what you're doing around the world. In your Son's name we pray. Amen. All right. As it says on the top of the handout, I forgot to mention last night, I've actually written several books. I forgot to mention that. So briefly, if you are interested, they are upstairs, but I wrote Looming Transitions for Starting and Finishing Well in Cross-Cultural Service. It's for the 4 to 6 months before a big transition because I worked with hundreds of people, and it meant transitions are just hard and they're messy, but God can be in them, and so how to stay connected to God, how to accept it's messy. Some of it's very practical. A lot of it is just more, transitions are really hard. How can we honorably head into them? A friend of mine said last night that, I don't know a friend, what am I saying? I met her in the bathroom, so that's very creepy, Amy, sorry. A person I had a random conversation in a public restroom said to me, she loves this book, and she even had just given it to her retiring pastor. And I said, the particular is transitioning from the mission field, but the general is we all have transitions in all of our lives. And that's partially why I wanted to write this book, is when I was looking for resources for so many people I knew on the mission field, most of the transition literature is for retirement. And that is an appropriate big transition. But the truth is, transitions are woven into our whole lives. You transition, I'm just thinking, in high school to college, and then out of college into a job. And then you're transitioning either to being married or to being an older single adult. You transition to parenthood. Your kids get older, and surprise, surprise, they leave. You transition to not having them. There's just so much transition woven into life, and I don't think we speak about it enough or understand it enough, and so it's this weird, dirty little secret that's in all of our lives. We all have transitions. But then the irony is, I had lived on the field for 20 years. But you write a book about transitions, and suddenly you're the transition lady who's helping everybody leave the field. And I was like, no, that's not what I want to be known for. I loved being on the field. So my second book is called Love Amy, an accidental memoir told in newsletters from China. So it's the first 9 years of my newsletters. I loved writing newsletters, which I also found it turned out to be weird. Many people don't actually like writing newsletters, which to me was weird that they didn't like it, which I think it just shows that we all what's normal to us, the other side of whatever that is. And so I just wanted to show people what it could be like to live day in, day out. And also, so many of the mission biographies, at least that I had read, are these amazing people. And so you feel like, well, my life doesn't measure up to that. And so this, to me, was just an example of what it's like to live a normal life, when sometimes the newsletter was about doing laundry, because that's actually what consumed most of that month. Figuring out you're suddenly like, yeah, and it wasn't the 50,000 that were coming to Christ. It was the 4 pairs of underwear that got clean. And that actually was quite an accomplishment. But then my final book is called All the News That's Fit to Tell and How to Tell It. And this is how to write newsletters. Really, it's all I learned about writing, because I realized I've been on full-time support now about 24 years. And so I've written monthly newsletters for 24 years. And I never thought of myself as a writer until I wrote a book. And I realized, I didn't realize I actually was a writer. When you write monthly newsletters, you are a writer. You are a writer. But all of the books geared towards writing are for serious writing. So I would never pick them up. I didn't consider myself a serious writer. I wrote newsletters because I had to. Not because I was a writer, because I was on support and I needed the money to keep coming and the prayers to keep coming. And so I took all that I learned. As I learned more and more about writing, I thought, you guys, I'm not stupid. I'm not brilliant, but I am not stupid. And if anyone would have just told me these little things about writing, I could have done it. I said I felt like I was walking around with lettuce on my newsletter tee. And if anyone would have just said, hey, if you do this little thing with your verbs, it really makes a big difference. I could have done it, but I didn't know to do that. So I just wanted to help everyone both enjoy reading them and writing newsletters. So each of them are $10 cash, because again, I just want to make them affordable, or $11 credit card. So feel free to buy them because I don't want to haul them home. That's also the truth. But we're not here just to talk about the books I've written, but one of the ministries that I helped start, Velvet Ashes. How many of you had heard of Velvet Ashes before? Some of you? Yay! Yay! And then obviously the rest of you had not. So welcome to hearing about it. First of all, the name of Velvet Ashes. A lot of people assume that it's from that verse in Isaiah about ashes. It's not. It's not. There you go. Okay, moving on. No, you can guess from our little emblem. It's actually a velvet ash is a tree. It's in the ash family. Oh, yeah. And what is super, super cool, and you can read more on the About page about our name, but the velvet ash tree thrives in unlikely places. And isn't that beautiful? And that's just our heart for women, wherever they are, is that they're thriving. And I would even say to redefine thriving. Thriving isn't like everything is awesome, but it's like whatever I'm finding myself in, I am balancing that risk and rest. I am able to thrive, even when it's hard. Thriving doesn't just mean everything has gotten lined up and it's easy and it's beautiful, but somehow I'm able to flourish in this season, even when it's hard or chaotic or I'm confused or I'm lost. The heart of Velvet Ashes is a way to share our stories in our lives. So often, due to very realistic or real needs for security risk, missions can get very siloed. As you guys know from hearing me speak, I served in China for about 18 years. And because it is a closed access country and because we just need to be, there is very real security things that need to be taken into consideration. A lot of the different organizations that are in China don't have good mechanisms to communicate with each other, or certainly didn't. Now with technology, with the web, there are different ways to do it. But before, it seemed you knew people in your own organization. You knew lots of people in your own organization, but you didn't have as much the broader picture of the body of Christ around the world. And so this is really what Velvet Ashes is it's a way to connect people from all over the world and a forum to share their stories, share their lives, share community, and know that they are not alone. It's the big Me Too. Before #MeToo became a thing, that was one of our sayings, was Me Too. When you hear someone else's story, you go, oh wow, Me Too. It's interesting, when we started Velvet Ashes, we thought we were going to kind of branch off and have like Velvet Ashes Asia, Velvet Ashes Africa, Velvet Ashes Europe, Velvet Ashes America, just because the world is so different, and we wanted to acknowledge serving in Africa can be quite different than serving in Europe. But the irony is, the more we've gotten into it, the more there is connection of Me Too, whether it is Africa or France or Germany or Cambodia, which really surprised us because we thought, well, we have to be culturally sensitive and we've got to take, this situation into consideration and this situation into consideration. And the truth is, our lives are more similar than we realize. Even though the context might be different, the emotions, whether you're away from your aging mom who has cancer, it sort of doesn't matter. If you're in France or if you're in this country, you're away from your family at a time, and you're wrestling with that. How do I manage those emotions? How do I manage that reality? So, Velvet Ashes, as I said at the top of the handout, we don't use the M word ever. I'm using it here because I find if I don't use the M word in America, it gets confusing for people. Like, are you really Christian? We really are. We use the language of cross-cultural workers. And we'll go through and clean out, because because we understand, again, this is the big world. Like in Africa, I feel like they dropped the M word like a bomb. And coming out of China, where you literally started to twitch if you heard it, I mean, literally, like, no, that's not me. And so just accepting that part of the world, like that word is used very, very differently around the globe. And so we try to do education, but also we understand it's on us to keep the site clean, so we'll go through and clean out comments, change the missionary to M word or cross-cultural. That's the beauty with technology, is we can go in and clean that up to keep it as clean as possible for people serving in areas that just sensitivity is a real issue, and to be sensitive to that. So the basic parts of Velvet Ashes. As you can see, you can go to Velvet Ashes at velvetashes.com. It is a website, but really that's kind of like the home base of all of the different things that we do. So first of all, there is a blog with weekly themes. I might move this. All right. Actually, I'm going to start off by showing you our About video. So, here. Let me just get this over here. All right. So, you can see when you go to the home page, up along the top, you'll see About, Blog, all the community stuff, and that's really like the heart of all of it. So we'll come back to that. Tool. This is so exciting, especially our resource page. That is something for you guys to be aware of. I'll click on that real quickly. We have gone out and curated all of these different resources. So first of all, we've got this bookshelf, which I love the bookshelf. So, and I love to be able to see the covers of titles instead of just a list of names. But then we have all of these different, so like these would be organizations that support cross-cultural workers. If you need someone with pre-field training or debriefing, so you click on debriefing, and here would be different organizations that provide debriefing. In particular, 3 things I want to highlight for you. When you've got a missionary that needs counseling, and you just don't know what to do or where to point them to. There's a whole bunch of different, here's counseling centers in North America, counseling centers outside of North America. But for you, distant online counseling. So this Oaks Counseling is, all of these are fantastic, and we have talked to each one of them. We've called them up, we've talked to them. We don't just put things on our website without kind of checking them out and making sure. But what is fantastic about Oaks Counseling, they're based in Texas. It's a ministry that provides distant counseling for missionaries. So they can get counseling while they're still on the field. So they will contact Oaks Counseling and find out, Oaks Counseling will link them up with a counselor 2 different ways. If they have what I would call a common problem or a common situation, depression, they will find out what state they're from in the United States and try and pair them with a counselor in that state so that when they are back home on furlough, they can meet in person with that counselor. But if they've got a problem or a situation that's more specific, my child has an eating disorder, there might not necessarily be a counselor in Idaho who that is their specialty. So they would also pair you with a counselor that deals with that specialty. And they then are going out and finding counselors in all of the 50 states and getting them to tithe 2 hours a week to counseling. So the counseling is provided free for counselors, for missionaries on the field. So that's why I just wanted to let you know, like, they can stay where they are, get a specific help, and so we don't have to be all things to all people. That's what I love about a resource list. But it's nice to know that these resources exist to be all things to different people. Coaching also exists there's several wonderful organizations that will provide coaching, and I would really love to advocate for more mission committees, more churches to provide coaching for their missionaries. Coaching is when something is going well. How can we keep it going well and build on it? And I find that some missionaries, especially that have been there for a while and are getting a little bored, how do we keep them professionally engaged and stimulated? And coaching is a great way to help them think of what could be next for me in my ministry. How could I take this to another level? Just sort of that outside brainstorming. Speech therapy. If you know of any missionaries who have their kids that need speech therapy, this is a way to get free speech. There's a woman who provides an organization. She coordinates speech therapists around the U.S. who will do distant speech therapy via Skype. So there's information there if you know of someone who has a child that needs speech therapy. And then Moms of Velvet Ashes is a wonderful, using Facebook, a close Facebook group for moms. And they weekly are just talking about different things related to mothering, and it's wonderful. So there's a whole variety of resources, from books to websites to debriefing to counseling to all sorts of things. So again, it's under tools, resources. So that's great. And then different ways for people to get involved. But I want to show you our About video so you can see a little bit about that.
We are women who love Jesus. We are women deeply moved by the great big needs of our world.
We are women who pack bags weighing exactly 50 pounds.
We are women preparing to go. We are women who stay.
We are women who return.
We are women needing to know we are not alone.
We are women who need the soul bond of others on the same rocky path.
We are an online community of women serving Jesus across the world.
We are a watering hole for women to find encouragement and hope.
We do this through daily blog posts, a weekly book club, and online connection groups led by mentors.
Yeah, it's really, really busy season.
We center on a theme each week and invite you to share your own blog posts and images as it grows.
We help you find and connect with other women living in your region of the world.
We hold an annual online retreat for you right where you are. Like the Velvet Ash Tree, we want to thrive in unlikely places. We're a safe place to be very real. As a woman who is serving or who has ever served overseas, you will constantly find yourself nodding and saying, oh, me too. Me too. Join us from all corners of the world at velvetashes.com.
So if someone says to you, what is Velvet Ashes? Say, let's go to the homepage and just watch that short video for 2 minutes. But isn't that exciting? It just stirs. So, as I said, we have the blog. So let's briefly go look at the blog. We have weekly themes, and you can see the weekly themes that will be, I guess the weekly themes are on the homepage. So this week's theme is children. We've been running a series. Last week the theme was parents. This week it's children. I think next week singles. So dealing with different stages of life. Sometimes we will run themes. I'm trying to think, how all of a sudden your mind goes blank. And in the fall, browse all themes. There you go. Browse all themes. But since we've been going about 5 years, and obviously there's 52 weeks in a year, and we have 1 week of Sabbath, we have 51 themes a year. So it's been fun. You'd think you'd run out of words or themes. You don't. Like, God is so creative, and there's so many words, and they're so cool. So recent ones: children, parents, authentic, healthy, journey, numbers. Oh, that was so fun. Numbers. Pondering, treasured up. That's more like the Christmas one. Let us go, fear not. That was from Luke 2. Fear not, let us go. Mary was pondering. Now you know where those came from. Yep. So there'll be a theme each week. So every week there are 5 blog posts. 4 of them are related to the theme of the week. And what's really neat about that is, and if any of you are writers and you would like to write, up here under Get Involved, submission guidelines. We are always looking for people to submit posts. It's wonderful. So there'll be 4 posts written about a theme. And what is so wonderful is you put out a theme like pondering or authentic or numbers. And the way the Holy Spirit stirs in different writers' hearts and writes posts. And so you'll kind of have 3 different takes, kind of coming at it from this angle or that angle, or what the Holy Spirit stirred in this person. And the final post of the week, we call it The Grove. And it's just another post about that theme, but it's like after we've been looking at this theme for a week, kind of what has been stirring, what has been going. And then the theme for the next week comes up. So it's long enough to have kind of a structured conversation, but not so long that you're like, okay, we've been talking about this for weeks, move along. So there's a rhythm to it of enough depth but enough motion. I said there are 4 posts. The 5th post is actually on Tuesday, and it is our book club. And you got bookmarks because I love the book club so much. The book club was actually born out of, my heart, my desire. I love to read, but when you are a missionary, or when you're a reader, and you read a good book, what do you want to do? You want to talk about it to people. And I found I would chase my teammates, like, you guys, I read this really good book. Or you're like reading passages to them, or you're like, let me give you a summary so now we can have a conversation about the book I read. And it's not that satisfying when someone else is like, yeah, okay, crazy lady, go away. And it turns out I'm right. There are a lot of readers out on the field. And there's just this hunger to read something. No, others are reading it in community, that we're spread out all over the world, and yet we're reading the same books and having the same conversation. So our web designer, I love this, has made a bookcase. You can see all of the former archives. So we're just this week we'll finish reading A Wrinkle in Time. And you can also see we read a whole variety of books. The fall book was Liturgy of the Ordinary. Have any of you read Liturgy of the Ordinary? Was it absolutely fantastic? Absolutely fantastic. So all of your hands need to go up. I'm sorry, I'm a book person. Liturgy of the Ordinary is absolutely fantastic. So you can see the book, and then here are the different posts. So our fall book, we'll have a book for the fall and a book for the spring that will go a little bit slower. We'll have spent two months on the fall book, 2 months on the spring book. Because every book is different. So how you read, like, A Wrinkle in Time. How many of you have read A Wrinkle in Time? That is a great young adult novel. And I'm just in the process of rereading it now for book club. How you read a young adult novel. You don't need 8 weeks to talk about Mrs. Who, Mrs. What's-It, Mrs. Which. But 3 weeks, so there's enough time to go over it. But some books, like Liturgy of the Ordinary, 1 week it's talking about, what I love about Liturgy of the Ordinary is it combines our normal day with then like a liturgical church service. So getting up, how do you start a liturgical church service? What do you do? I mean, so it just pairs, how does this liturgy not just live in an hour-long church service, but in our lives, woven into our daily life? So it's so good to, if you read the whole book and discussed it in 1 week, this would be your discussion. I liked it. Me too. It was great. Wow. Changed my life. Me too. It's too much to have a meaningful discussion. So you discuss it chapter by chapter, and you can say something more meaningful. Sacred Rhythms is going to be our spring book. So again, looking at different rhythms. So looking here at the book archive, you can see literally, I think by now we have probably discussed 60 books in the last 5 years. Oh, maybe more. I don't know. It gets to be a lot. But it's just so fun to look through. And also, if you're a reader, and if you're just looking for good books, here's kind of a curated list, and then discussions. You can go in and read the posts and see what's going on. So Monique in the Mango Rains. Oh, it was a birth center in Africa. A Peace Corps worker who went to work there. My grandmother asked me to tell you she's sorry. That's our August book. We've kind of we read a Frederick Bachman book each August. I don't know how we hit on that. You just hit your little rhythm. So that's fun. Joan Byer, Hope Was Here, another young adult. North and South, which is based in England. Holy cow, when we picked that, did not know it was like 5,000 pages long. No, but it's super good. Okay. Scouting the Divine, Humble Roots, The Piano Tuner, Walk Two Moons. So you can just sort of see we've got variety there of different kind of books. So if you've got book readers out on the mission field, we'll get to that later, but one way you can support them is give them an Amazon gift card. Buy them a $20 Amazon gift card and say, here is, we'd love for you to be a part of the book club. Go buy. We try to be sensitive to prices, and you'll see some of these books are chosen, like I sort of make fun of North and South, but because it is so old, it's free on Amazon. So we try to be sensitive of understanding missionaries don't have a ton of books to be buying a new book every month, but that's one thing you can do, is give them the gift of, we did do a survey, and about a third said cost is a reason they don't participate in book club. And so I I'd hoped to build a scholarship fund. You know, there's more ideas than times to get things done, but I would love to have a scholarship fund so that money isn't the reason a woman out on the field can't read a good book.
I just feel like I should add this. I have an app on my phone that you can, if you have a library card, in America you can check out library books on your Kindle and then read them.
Yes, and so let missionaries know as well that they can check out books. What's minorly challenging, and I totally love that, so Hoopla, Access 360, there are a lot of great library resources. Velvet Ashes also has people that are not Americans, and oh my word, we don't have to go off on the sidetrack of my opinion of Amazon, because I do love them, but you suddenly realize Amazon.uk, Amazon.ca, Amazon.de, if you're an Australian trying to access Amazon.com, I mean, it can be a nightmare. So that's why, to a certain extent, ask your missionary what works for them in their setting, and let them know about apps, Hoopla, and other library resources. And maybe even they do have teammates that are not Americans that don't have quite the access to resources that we do. Do they have a teammate that you could buy an Amazon card for? A teammate that's not an American that doesn't have access. We are so blessed coming from America that there are so many phenomenal resources, and Velvet Ashes has opened my mind to the broader world of even people not from America, and even how many resources I'm assuming most of us in this room are Americans, have access to. And so thinking about how we can also serve missionaries not even from America, but serving in different countries. So there's the blog, there's the book club, and then going up here to community, I'm going to go to connection groups. I'm going to sound like a broken record because I love everything. So I love connection groups. I know it's probably a little hard, having known me all of 24 hours, to imagine that I don't love everything. I do. It's my personality. I love everything. Connection groups are set up to be small groups because we understand for some people, like the blog is just too big. It's too public. A lot of people will comment in the comments on the blog, but for some people that's not how they're going to interact. It feels too large, too impersonal, and they want to be in a small group. And so we have connection groups in the fall and in the spring. And what's really exciting is connection group registration, I think, is the first week of March, so it hasn't happened yet. So if you've got women out on the field, let them know about connection groups. We tend to have about 40 different connection groups, so about 300 women around the world in small groups at one time. And the small groups, the connection groups, tend to be about 6 people. So we'll have one facilitator and 5 or 6 people. We have a variety of different types of groups. And so even, this is both the blessing and the curse of working with an online community that's all over the world with all kinds of technology. We have 57,000 variations of everything, which makes it a little hard to succinctly describe anything. So a connection group could be a Skype group. But some people live where they don't have great internet, so Skype is simply not going to work. Or they live in places where the government controls the internet, and so sometimes we ran into this in China one semester, one spring. Every other week, the government was turning the internet off. And so being in a Skype group was just not feasible that semester for people in China. So there are also Facebook groups. We have something we call Facebook Live Chat. And what that means is you all agree to be on Facebook at the same hour. So for some people who are like, well, I can't do Skype because my internet connection doesn't work, but I don't like the Facebook, I want that hour where we're all communicating at the same time, where there is that live interaction. And so with Facebook, so you can see here, we've got Skype groups, we've got Facebook Live Chat. So, and everything is set up on Eastern time. So you might see some people, none of these times are too weird, but sometimes you might see 2 a.m. because wherever they are in the world, like that is obviously not 2 a.m. So on a Facebook Live chat, they'll all get on at the same time, and their facilitator will post in the Facebook stream a question, a graphic and a question, and then you're commenting in the comments. And I have to say, when I've led these groups, it is the absolute fastest hour on the planet. Because like you're typing and reading and scrolling and typing and reading and the next, I mean, it's really fun, but it's also not for everyone. So that's why we have a variety of groups. And we do then have one email group each time, because there are a few people who are like, I hate Facebook, it is the spawn of the devil. And you're like, okay, I sort of don't understand how you live outside of the U.S. in this day and age, but that's okay. So, connection groups. They will be based, we have a facilitator guide for the facilitators, and the groups are loosely based around the weekly themes. So, we try to be very intentional during connection groups to choose themes that are discussable. So for example, you notice the theme of numbers. That might not lead to the deepest discussions. So we did not put that theme during connection groups. It might be things like struggle. That could be a theme. And so then there'll be different questions related to it. You know, what has been a struggle for you in this season of life? What did you think was going to be a struggle, but has turned out not to be a struggle? So things like that. Each connection group starts out with just, how's your week going? And sometimes that's all that's needed. They just need an hour to share how things are going in their life, and you never get to the questions. And that's fine. The questions are there if, after everyone's kind of caught up on how their week is, what can we be praying about, how are things going? And it's like, oh, okay, we're kind of good. All right, well then let's still have something of substance to discuss. So they're very open to what is the need of that group. It's not so prescriptive. It's, all right, Amy, don't say that out loud. Okay. We'll move along. All right. It's open to what is the need, and we really want to empower the facilitators to go with what that group needs. So if you need to be using the questions for that week, that's great. If you need to open it up, or someone's had a horrible trauma, they were attacked and robbed, and they just need to debrief and talk about that and get prayer, that is great. Whatever is the need of that group is what we want to go with. And we also we have a private Facebook group for the facilitators, and that I have absolutely loved, because I find many women on the field are not afforded opportunities for leadership and for being developed, especially married women. Often it's their husband that's viewed as like the real or the employee of the agency. And every agency is different. Again, working with Velvet Ashes, we're now working with hundreds of agencies that view men and women, view who does what very differently. But for these women to be able to pour into them as leaders, and to discuss, how do you lead a group? How do you do, the book we used in the fall was The Advantage by Patrick Lencioni, which I think is a fantastic book to hit some core leadership things without being like so leadership-y, kind of finding that balance. So that's also just to let you know, if you've got women who you're like, you're a little bored, here's an opportunity, you could serve. That's an option. So those are connection groups. We also have, and some of you have done this, our retreat. So, I know, have any of you actually done the retreat? Several of you? 2? Okay, people, get ready to get excited. This is the theme for this retreat. So let me back up and give you a little bit of history about how the retreat came. You know that going to a retreat is fantastic, to get space to hear from God. But so many retreats, you have to physically go to them. And it is very complex when you're on the mission field. On the map, maybe this country and this country look super close, but actually getting from this country to this country, maybe you have to fly to this country, to this country, to this country, to this country. I mean, it's just, and then if you're married and you've got kids, you've got to arrange childcare, so now you're trying to coordinate with your spouses. If he travels, I mean, it just can begin to be like, that is a great idea, never going to happen. And so we thought with technology, let's bring the retreat to them. You don't have to go anywhere. And so we film an entire retreat, and then people can download it and watch it. We do try to have it. As you see, there's this date, April 25th to the 28th, so that we're having the retreat at the same time. Because that's also the powerful thing about a retreat, is when you're together in community, having that time together and other people to talk about. But we understand the reason it's for 4 days, it's really set up to be flexible. Again, we're dealing now with a whole variety of situations. It could be a half-day retreat, it could be a full-day retreat, or it could be like an overnight retreat. It's for 4 days because the first 2 days, we're assuming you're downloading the material. So that when you are ready for the retreat, you have everything downloaded and you're not being held hostage by the internet that is streaming like, and there's nothing more manning than that. So that's why we say, don't sweat it. It's totally available for 4 days. We're assuming, as we say, the first 2 days, you just have your little computer over here downloading the material. You're living your life so that when it is time for the retreat, you have downloaded everything. Many online retreats nowadays, you're not able to download material because people just get very worried. Are you going to sell it? We're like, whatever, it's God's. So it's not, if you want to stream it, you can stream it, but if you are in a place where, as I said, the internet is really not reliable, you can download it. Every year the retreat will be different in that we always have a leader who will have prepared some scripture to go through. We will always have some testimonies, and that's one of the biggest draws. People repeatedly talk about how, so we will have filmed testimonies from different missionaries. If you have done other online retreats right now, with especially women's groups like the If Gathering, Encourage, Encourage, they have done some different online retreats. They're wonderful, but the testimonies are usually of women who live in North America. So their testimonies are, oh, it was so frustrating when I waited in the carpool line, and that mom was just mean to me, or whatever. They're very appropriate North American testimonies, but when you're living on the field, you're listening to it, and instead of engaging with the material, you're more annoyed with it. And you're more like, you think you have a problem, Chicky Poo? Well, let me tell you. And instead of like hearing from Jesus, you're just annoyed. You're just annoyed. And so with technology, we're like, well, we'll just go film real missionaries. And that has been absolutely phenomenal because you're hearing, again, it might be a person in a different region of the world, but she's referencing visas or her child back in the States, or this or that, and you're like, okay, you get it. And then there's just that deeper connection. We also then try to have different retreat elements every year. So we'll film some sort of exercise related to that. We've hired people to do holy yoga, weaving in the scripture from that retreat. Holy Pilates, weaving in the scripture. Last year we had kickboxing. And this year it's a bar class, so some different, like the ballet bar that's real in right now, so a bar class related, which is just fun that there's some way to use your body. So you listen to like these intense scriptural things that are wonderful, and then you just need space to go process it. So we're like, process with Jesus. Like your mind is working while your body's doing stuff. So there's some element of exercise woven into it. We also will weave in, as I say, different other elements that are just meant to be a treat. So how do you do a spa treatment when you are out in the bush? So recipes of how to make facials with very readily available ingredients, salt and this or that. And so how do you do facials? How do you do this? How do you do that? Very intentional. Last year we had a worship filming. So we brought in a bunch of people and did a worship session because a lot of people, that's what the feedback we've gotten back. They're just hungry. They're like, I love the local church where I'm at, but I don't always feel fed. And I would like at a retreat time to just sit and sing in English songs that are familiar. I don't need to do that all the time, but if I could just have 40 minutes of a corporate worship, as much as it could be a corporate worship, with my computer, I would love that. So we did that last year, and we've done it again this year for the retreat. We start registration at the beginning of March, and the retreat for the early bird special is $10 for For all of those elements, it's $10. If you don't buy it in the early bird retreat, or the first week, it's $15, which still very doable. And I would highly recommend to all of you, you see up here on the word retreats, click on that magic button. And these are our past retreats. So we also want them to be available now. They're $25 a retreat, so slightly more, but still very, very affordable. And so if you've got missionaries out there and you know of someone and you're like, oh man, you're just in a hard time right now, what you need is just time with Jesus. Really how we view the retreat is we set the table, but it's God that feeds them. And so there's all these different pieces. We don't know which one God's going to use or what they're going to need. And so they know their situation, they know their time, they know what they want to do. They can get that. Now, Release was our very first one. Release, Living to Learn, Light and Free. Because, sorry if that's higher. Release, Learning to Live Light and Free. So many missionaries live heavy and burdened. And we're like, we have the most high God. Like we should be. How do we manage that tension of learning to live light and free? That was our first retreat, and so I will say the content is amazing. The filming quality is mediocre. It's not horrible, but if you've seen other Velvet Ashes retreats and you go back to that and you're like, okay, it was our proof of concept. We didn't have a big budget. We still didn't have a big budget. Filmed it, put it up, said for free, there will be this retreat on this day in 2015, I think. We had 722 people in 92 countries that first year. And that's when we were like, okay, there's a big need here. So our second retreat is Commune, Closer to Christ, Farther from Fear. And I think that retreat, I think we have 1,200 people in 121 countries. And that, you can see even just in the graphic, it looks a little bit more, I'll use the word professional. We hired a professional videographer. He is amazing. Derek is absolutely amazing. And that's then when our costs started to go up. And so it was the year Receive is when we started to charge for retreats, the $10, just because we want to be able to keep doing it, and we want it to be sustainable, and also felt if people pay a little bit, you're slightly more invested. So this is Receive, an invitation. I should have all these memorized. An invitation to God's presence. And last year was Sustain. Encountering God's heart for you. I know all the big words, and then I forget the little words. And as I said, this year the theme is Shalom. Pretty soon our promotional video is going to come out, but this is last year's promotional, like letting people know what it is.
Imagine hitting pause on your to-do list. Imagine stepping away from all the people you see, just for a day or two. Because God wants to meet with you, be with you. Imagine a whole retreat experience all planned out for you that you can experience as a personal or group retreat right where you are.
The Velvet Ashes retreat always speaks to me right where I'm at, wherever I am, as if they're sitting around planning what Abby needs to hear that year.
Last year, 5 women here did the Velvet Ashes retreat. The conversations that we had, times we spent individually with the Lord were incredible.
There is this safe place of nurture that God invites us to.
They're ministering to my soul. Just a season of life that I was in and currently in.
We could pick and choose what you wanted to do. We were able to make it our own, but without the hard work of having to pull all the things together.
I never thought that exercise would have been my thing. So just some sort of variation of what little kids do at breakfast.
But the Velvet Ashes has done a wonderful job putting a very simple retreat to host.
God uses sufferings and trials and challenges to draw us closer to Him.
I was living my dream. On May 19th, everything changed.
I have come to realize every year I'm going to cry. Seeing the women on those videos, being able to hear their voices is just another one of those scenarios where I'm able to say, me too.
experience it with women across the world as a personal or group retreat right where you are. Register at velvetashes.com.
Doesn't that just give you goosebumps?
Question.
Yes.
When you do a group retreat, are you asking each woman in the group to contribute the money? Or is it a one-time download?
It's a one-time download, but we do ask if each woman could pay the $10. And even that, it's so neat to see how God gives you a spark of an idea, and I was going to tell you how you just run with it. Because we had this idea for a retreat, and we're picturing a bunch of individuals out all by themselves, just able to do this retreat. And a woman contacted us that first year, and she said, would you mind, if I got together my teammates and did this? And we were like, oh my gosh, first of all, how did we miss that? Duh. And no, we would not mind at all. And she's like, how would I use it? At which we were then on the fly. Well, here's 5 ideas. So but by the second year, we now have a whole host guide. So people can sign up to be hosts. And it's a whole host guide of... And they have access to the material, I think we try to have everything ready 3 weeks early, so they can also have downloaded, there comes with a guide with it as well, for a journal guide for the retreat, so they can download all of the material that the participants will need, get copies made, if they want. Again, we want all of this to be available to you, to be as easy for you to lead as you want. And so sometimes it's 3 women, and they have gone and rented a hotel in their city. Sometimes it's 20 women, and it's a half-day retreat. Sometimes it's a full-day retreat or an overnight. So we'll say, if you have time, if you have 4 hours, this is what we recommend you do. If you have 8 hours, this is what you could do. And if you have an overnight, some people will hire a massage therapist, or not therapist, but a masseuse person-y to come in. And so they'll have 2 hours in the afternoon where they'll do their own, pedicures and manicures, and someone's getting massages. And it's just really neat, the variety.
The gift card, is that for people to be able to give?
Yes.
It goes anywhere?
Yes.
Anybody?
So you buy a gift card and you can send it to that person, your missionary, and she could buy the retreat. Yep.
Otherwise, do you have a scholarship fund?
We also do have a scholarship fund. We have, when someone buys a retreat, there's an option if you want to buy one, give one. Because we also wanted to set up, so often missionaries, people are doing things for them, and they don't have an opportunity to give to others in an easy way. And so we wanted also to make it easy for them to be generous. A lot of people can buy one for $10 and give one for $10 and be generous. Yep.
If I were to buy this for my intention leaders,
Yes.
there's 4 of them, and I hope that they'll do it together. I don't know.
Right.
Just 40, or should I send it individually to each person? Or they're very collective, so they would do it together. More likely than not, should I just do 40, and then that pays for all 4 of them?
The only reason I would say no, I would buy individually so they can each get the login and have access. Yeah. Yes.
How much is the host guide?
The host, it's free.
Okay.
It's free. Yeah, and there'll be an opportunity, let me go back up here just to the retreat page, the home page, just a second. You could get notified when registration opens. There's got to be a place here, up on the top. Oh, be a host. Thank you. I'm like, I know we made it super easy. So easy, I missed it. Yeah. But be a host. Thank you. Yes. So let us know about your group, your email, what country you're in, and then you can join a retreat Facebook group, and these are all secret closed groups, so they are not searchable on the internet. So you will know it exists, but the government should not. And then if you want to register the members of your group here. But yeah, so we try to make it as easy as possible because we found, I'm trying to think, in general, we have about 100 different groups meeting during the retreat together. And as I say, some will be small, 3 or 4, that's wonderful. Some are larger. There is this hunger to do retreat together, but there's not time to pull the material together. And so when, boom, it shows up. And that's why I want to let you know about past retreats. If people could even start doing a retreat in the fall, use a past retreat, do one in the fall, and then do this new one in the spring. We're contacted now all the time around the beginning of January. When is the retreat? We're putting it on our calendar, like we're letting our team know, we're letting our mission know, this weekend we are not going anywhere. We are retreating, which I love that. And that it's even getting built into just slowly into the mission vernacular. I think last year it was 1,600 women did it at the same time. Isn't that just, I love that God's Spirit then is feeding everyone kind of from the same plate of food. And, yeah.
Can I just share something?
Oh, please do, Mary. Yes. Do you want to come up here and use the microphone?
I think I can talk. I'll use my teacher voice.
I will get a little closer for the recording.
My husband, my family, and I are missionaries in China, and we've been there for the past 10 years. And women in my group in my city have been doing this since 2015 because we have a wonderful member care person in our city. And she's about my age, and she tries real hard to pull the women together in our organization. So we have done it each year. Well, our group is made up of predominantly South Koreans. So awesome. We had South Korean women, Americans, a German, a Mexican, a whole variety. We're with Wycliffe. Anyway, so the first year, almost everybody came. And we thought it was wonderful. The second year, she said to me, Mary, none of the South Korean women are signing up for it. It's only those that are really fluent in English. Now, I don't know whether Catherine ever contacted you or anything, but what Catherine did was she talked to one of the husbands of the South Korean wives whose English is very good. He translated your whole material to Korean so that
we did not know that. That's awesome.
And the other women could really feel like they could fully participate. It was totally awesome. She was able to actually spread that to other people in our East Asia group so that the other Korean women could also do it. But the other story is, because it's been several years, God just did such amazing things on the Velvet Ashes retreat days. We've done an overnight, we've done the 4-hour, we've done the 8-hour, just depending on what was going on in our country and in our lives at the same time. But not this past year, but the year before, our leader, Catherine, we were meeting at her house, our member care person. Her 4th grandchild was born as we were coming to her apartment, and it turned out that her little granddaughter just had significant physical problems. And we went ahead with the retreat, but it was just such an unfolding time for Catherine. She said she didn't know how she would have managed emotionally and spiritually had not all of us been there together to support her and pray for her and just, love on her during that really difficult time that her daughter was, having a baby on the other side of the world, and she's not there with her. And so God was so good in orchestrating that timing. So
that's really neat. Thank you for sharing. That is the tension. We have been contacted. Can you translate these retreats into? And we've done some research, and it's overwhelming. Like, do you start in Spanish? Do you start? Right now, I think God has just said you need to be who you are. It's that tension I think we all feel. The needs are endless, and how do you be true to what it is God has called you to do?
But I should tell Catherine to send you.
That would be great. Yes. All right. Briefly, how can you use Velvet Ashes? So, Obviously, share with people that you know who are preparing to go to the field, on the field, or in some form of reentry. We have materials, blog posts, different themes, hitting all of those different points. If your missionary is already a part of Velvet Ashes, ask her which articles or themes have been meaningful to her recently. I think this is a way for you to be able to engage with her in meaningful conversation, instead of just how's it going, which is great. That's legit too. But sometimes if someone said, hey, did you read this article? What did you think about it? That I can say that, like, how are you doing? Where do I even start? But I can answer a specific question. So take the theme of the week and ask your missionaries questions related to the theme, both about her and about where she serves. You can read the articles and the comments to help you grow in your understanding. I find so much. If you would go through and you would read, I think if mission committees would read the comments, it helps them understand missionaries' world so much better.
In the blogs.
In the blogs, yep, on the blogs. If you read through the comments, there's just gems there of what they're facing or what's interesting to them or what's on their heart, what has been a joy or a struggle. All of that comes up. This past week on children, there were several interviews with TCKs. Those are precious. One of the moms, I think she said her son's 9 and 7 and her daughter was 4. So she's like, my daughter's answers would be all unicorns and sparkles, so I didn't even ask her. But the 7 and the 9-year-old boy, and it was even interesting for her to ask them questions and to see what they would say. I'll let you go read them. It was interesting. They live in China, and so talking about like what is the culture difference. One of the culture differences the 9-year-old said was, when Chinese fall down, people rush over and try to help them up. They don't just say, you're fine, you're fine. She's like, what have I done to my children? They don't just say, you're fine, get up. They help their friends, Mom. But that would be one thing, I'll close that. That would be one thing, is just to read through some of the themes and the comments. We have a weekly roundup. Honestly, I will say, for most of us here in the States, you don't need the weekly, or you don't need the daily blog post. It gets to be too much. It's really lovely if you are out on the field and you don't have a lot of community, or you don't have a lot of material specifically geared to you. A lot of women will use the blog post sort of as a jumping off point to a daily devotional. What does God stir in them? What scriptures bring up? But we do have you seen? It's a weekly digest, so you get it just on Saturday. And that would give you a brief summary of the 5 posts of the week. But as well, we're going out and curating different blogs. Probably we follow 200 blogs, missionary blogs, and blogs related to missions around the world. And we'll choose like the top 7 posts of that week. So you don't have to go out and read the 300. You can just see the curated list each week, and then you'll see the upcoming theme. So it's kind of fun to see what's the next week's theme. You can buy the book club book for your missionaries. Tell people about connection groups. Also, if you have been on the field and you're like, man, these connection groups sound fantastic, we're always in need of facilitators. We can only have as many groups as we have facilitators. The groups always fill up, and there's people, and it breaks your heart. I'm out in this situation, and I meant to sign up, or I just found out about it, and it's full. And sometimes we're able to get people in, but there's always more. So if you're interested in being a facilitator, we would love to have you as a facilitator. I didn't even mention them, but these personally timed series, which that was up under the resource tab. The personally timed series are for when someone is moving to the field or someone is leaving the field. It's an 8-week series, and it's personally timed because you put in your date. I am moving, back to the States on May 4th. And so then I love the internet and what technology can do. So you can enter it weeks ahead of time and forget that you even entered it. And it's set up that automatically 2 weeks before that date, if you're returning back to the States, you will get a blog post a week for 2 weeks. Then you move back to the States on May 4th, that date you input, and you will get 6 more posts for the next 6 weeks. that are specifically curated related to that. If you're moving to the field, it's kind of the opposite. You put in your date for when you're moving to the field, and for 6 weeks getting ready to go, you'll get posts, you move, and then you have 2 more weeks. So kind of that personally timed for you. So letting people know about those series. You could inform people and then purchase this year's retreat as a present. And you could even ask them, do you have teammates that can't afford it? Would you like to go to a hotel? Could I pay for a meal? Is there something special I could add that would help this even be a more special retreat? You can provide a care package for this year's retreat, asking, is there anything you do need? Is there something, could we send you? Lotion. And again, that's the problem, is the whole world is so different. What's going to work customs-wise? You know your people, ask them what could work in their setting. What could help to create kind of a retreat time. You can purchase the previous retreats. And be aware of the Velvet Ashes resource page about the counseling, the debriefing, and all of the other resources there. So I hope that gives you some exciting ideas of even what technology is capable of providing for encouraging. We don't view ourselves, we're just another layer of member care that's kind of outside of an organization, outside of a church, and just able to connect people to each other. So thank you so much for your time, and I will probably see you upstairs and around and about, and have a wonderful rest of the conference. I would, sure. Yeah, yes, Amy, yeah.
A couple months ago, I just